let's talk about this thing maybe from a guy named Empty Cloud, who was a Chinese Buddhist teacher. Uh, he's dead now, but there's some texts. Well, I don't know if he wrote them. I think he did write them. But just a short thing on his teaching. But to me, it's like one of the most succinct things about listening, like from the Chan point of view. Empty Cloud was his name. There's a cool, like a sort of a documentary, but it's just kind of like a bunch of video by a guy named Edward Berger, who took a bunch of video of the monastery, the temple where Empty Cloud lived. It's really cool in China. It's shot really cool, and the sound stuff in it is really neat. But anyways, Empty Cloud talked about this thing called host and guest. And I've heard other Chan teachers talk about this. And when it comes to like a listening meditation, let's say, or even the idea of not to, or negation, the host and guest thing is really, it's quite potent in a way. So Empty Cloud would say essentially that a good guest, like a guest at an inn or a hotel, the host of an inn or a hotel, the owner. The owner of the inn or the hotel doesn't come and go. The guests come and go through the hotel, but the owner of the inn, the host, doesn't come and go. So this is like the whole idea of the host and guest thing. When you do listening, you can hear sound outside the ears, yeah? Well, seemingly outside of the body. That sound is obviously a guest because it comes and goes. It's the same thing with the eyes. When the eyes see something, what's seen is a guest, because as soon as the eyes moves, or the object which is being seen moves, it's gone. Yeah? So it obviously doesn't stay. So essentially what Empty Cloud is saying is to not grasp onto any guests. So he's saying be a good host. And Huang Po had this thing where he said keep both hands open. So you don't bind or grasp onto the guests. Yeah. So sound outside is one thing. And then of course there's all of the thoughts, the thinking mind. Yeah. So the thinking obviously comes and goes. It's not a consistent, it's not like one thing is being thought all the time. It's always changing. It's impermanent, yeah? And it's empty at that. So it's empty of its own individual or independent existence outside from what happens in the contact with the world. Yeah? So something happens out here and then something happens in here, essentially. But the thoughts come and go is the point. And then there's the thought me. Now the thought me presents as an independent, permanent thing. Meaning the thought I or J or me presents itself as something that doesn't come and go. It's presenting, it is playing or acting like the host to your experience right now. The thought me is acting like the host. It's got the coat on and the hat of host. But it comes and goes. Except you don't think so. Because if you're identified with that me thought, then you wouldn't agree, because the me thought doesn't agree with this message. You can see the thought I or me come and go from before it, because you're always the host, which is before when it comes and goes. Yeah? So really, it's like it would be not to grasp onto the guests. Or I've heard some Advaita teachers say, don't touch. Like Gangamira would say, don't touch the mind. Don't touch the mind. So it's kind of the same idea, yeah? The basis of it here is you can hear the guests. You can hear the guests. You can hear your head as I speak, try to understand and paint what I'm saying in its own understanding, the mental system's own understanding. You can hear that happening right now because you are the host, which doesn't come and go. Those thoughts come and go. They go left and right. Yeah? So you can really like go through your experience as a body and a brain and identify guests. Like this body itself would be a guest because it's born and that means that it will die. So it comes and goes. Yeah. So obviously it's a guest rather than a host. And you can hear the body through physical sensation. So not hearing the body with the ears, although you can hear the heartbeat and the blood and all of this stuff, but you hear the body from before it, let's say, or for what pervades it. So the guests move through the space, the open space of listening, which is the host. Yeah. So empty cloud would say that it's important to understand that before you start getting into any sort of meditation practice. Otherwise, you can spend your whole life identified as a guest trying to become the host. And that doesn't work because what you already are is open awareness. Yeah. What you already are is the host. What we identify with as the body and the mind is a guest. The guest can never become the host because there already is a host. That's what you are, yeah? Now the guest will constantly try to become the host. It wants to get out of itself, let's say. That would look like J trying to get out of J. Or it would be like J is trying to become the host of all the experiences. But the J that's trying to become the host is one of the guests. So there's cool things in Chan. Like Kwang pose, keep both hands open like you have nothing to lose. Because really, what you are does have nothing to lose. Because there's no guest outside of what you are. All the thoughts, body, and world is pervaded by open listening. Yeah? And also the thoughts, body, and world don't exist without the open listening. And it's like in the Indian thought, all of the contents of your experience as body, mind, world is just the energy of the open space or awareness from which it arises. Yeah. So the host and guest thing's really cool because you can sit down and watch your experience. And if something is born and dies, that would put it under the category guest rather than host. Yeah? So you would not grasp at it or just don't touch that. Like if the body is a guest, then you need to relax gripping on the body. Yeah? If the mental system is a guest, which it is, it comes and goes, then you don't grasp onto it. Yeah? You don't identify with it. And then it's the same thing with the thought me or I. That is also a guest. So I wouldn't grasp onto that either because it's ever changing. And the mental system, of course, will keep going on. Self doesn't stop, like when we do the talks on recovery. Self keeps going, the wheel keeps turning. Yeah? You are ever the open listening before that. Before the head says me, it's like Nisargadatta said, before any thought you exist. There's existence before any thought. So the host never comes and goes. Even when the body goes to sleep, that is a movement of guest. Yeah. But what you are is the host. So when you're doing the listening to sound, that quickly turns into not just external sound. Yeah. The listening steps back, essentially, and you can see that what you're taking yourself to be is actually a guest. It's not the host. And then there's a lot of relief in that. Because the guest is always playing chess with this life. It's dualistic, so that's all it can do, you know. There's nothing wrong with that. It's a dualistic system, but it can get pretty uncomfortable. Yeah. It's like I did a lot of traveling for a while, and like the idea of being the guest seems very beautiful, yeah. But there's a lot of stuff that comes along with being the guest. Like, you're always looking for the next place to stay, or where am I going to eat? There's all this constant movement, yeah. It seems to be a lot more peaceful as the host when you're traveling around the world, if you are. So it's the same in like sound meditation. It's much more stable to be what comes and what doesn't come and go, because you already are that. Yeah? So it would take not identifying with what's coming and going, and you would sit back into what you already are, which is not coming and going. The thing about the sound and listening is you don't obtain anything. It's not like a getting, which is why I think a lot of people don't come to it. Because the head doesn't get anything. Yeah? You stop grasping at that and you land back into what you already are. But the mental system, where most people are identified with that, pretty much everybody's identified with that, and the mental system wants to get something. You see? A guest wants to become the best guest. From the host, I don't really care that much about this guest, this guesting. But identified as the guest, there's always something to get out of or something to get into. It's not like a stable solution, I don't feel, to peace, you know. I also feel like if we try to use Zen or Chan or listening or whatever as a management technique for the body and the mind, it's being misused in many ways. Because if you investigate like something like the host and guest, for instance, you would see that what you are is already the host. And that would allow you to stop running around with the brain on its endless search for whatever it's trying to get a hold of. Yeah. Like peace as a solution. In a way, the mental system doesn't want that because it's a guest, so it's always on the run, yeah? And it's always identifying with this thing and then this thing and then this thing. The host lets that happen. So you don't grasp at all the guesting that's going on as far as a body and a mind go. That happens on its own in many ways. You don't have to do anything about that. But if you grasp onto it, it's going to take you through its guest adventures, which can get super uncomfortable, which would be why alcohol and drugs become an option. Yeah. To deal with the discomfort of living as a guest, something that always comes and goes. As a host, there's no discomfort, so there's no need to drink and use as the host, as what you are, let's say. So the enquiry itself, who is listening, that is a movement of a guest. And you see that it doesn't take very long before you start to see that the thoughts, even the thoughts of the inquiry, who is listening, and then me, and then that is all just a way for, as they would say, you dream yourself out of the dreaming. Yeah. Like in Advaita, this is called the waking dream. And it's like when you go to sleep at night, when you have dreams, it's like you're the guest, yeah? That's kind of interesting. It's like you're the main character in the dream, but you're a guest in the rest of the dream. So in a way, this is the same. Like in Indian philosophy, this would be called the waking dream. Because there's like a character being played here called Jay. Yeah. Now, if you identify with Jay, it seems super real, meaning independent, existent, separate, completely separate from everything else. It seems like that would be the whole basis. Yeah? If that's the case, then you're completely tied to what the head sells you here, which is a conditioned head. So that can get pretty wild, because what the head is talking about and trying to sell you actually isn't happening. The mental system is labeling the world to see a certain way based on its own past. So it's like Course in Miracles, you only see the past. So this is like called the waking dream, because this is very much like a dream in that way. Because Jay is a guest, in moving through the open space of listening, which would be considered the host. Jay is an ever-changing thing that will continue to keep changing. That's not a very solid seat to sit on as far as lasting peace being lived in the life. No? Lasting peace would be much more like something that doesn't come and go, which would be the host. So you can look at, you can sit with that in a way. Look at your experience of the body and mind, see what comes and goes, label it as a guest, and be a good host, and don't grab or bind onto your guests. So the body obviously is a guest. It comes and goes. It's born and then it will die. All of the thoughts are that way, including the thought me. And then keep going. See what else arises and see that it's a guest rather than what you are. Yeah? If you see it as a guest, you don't grasp onto it. And that matures in a way. Because it's like, that's real. So you cannot grasp onto the mind, the mental, the small m mind, the mental system mind. You cannot grab onto that. Which would mean that what you are must not be that. If you cannot grab onto something and the life continues on, you must not be that. Because you're not that. Yeah. You're the host that's aware of all the guesting moving around. And that's a big relief, because living as a guest can get very uncomfortable. Very uncomfortable. Yeah. All right. If there's any questions or something, feel free to ask away. You can put things in the chat there. Or if you'd like to share something or just say hello, feel free. I don't even know if there's anybody who's listening to these things, but that stuff's been very, as far as listening goes, that to me is like the host and guest thing's one of the clearest thing I've ever heard in a way. So you'll see your head, when it hears a sound, it will label that sound. So if there's a sound which goes by that the ears pick up, the head will immediately say that's the wind, yeah? So both the sound is a guest, but also the mental labeling is also a guest. You can't get free of the guesting being identified as it. That would be self trying to get at a self, and that just doesn't work. It's by seeing that you're not the guest. So not grasping on to all this movement of the guest in all the different ways that it approaches the body, all the mind stuff, the mental stuff, and then the world stuff. Yeah. It's by not grasping onto that, you can only land in one place, which would be the listening to what's being heard. Yeah. That's why we use the thing, what's being heard is not what is hearing. You can hear your head all day long. So obviously, what's being heard, which is the head, is not what is hearing the head. The head, the mental system, is a guest. It comes and goes, it's changing, it's flipping all day long. Yeah. But what is hearing that is doesn't come and go. Even when the body goes to sleep, that doesn't come and go. Thankfully, that's a seat to sit on. Something steady, finally. Yeah. Maybe call it the infinite, rather than the finite. The finite being the mental system, world, body, mental system. All right. Oh, Christy, welcome. Christy Barbudo. Not grasping has been difficult all my life. Well, if I feel this, if you're taking something to be you and what you are, you can't let go of it. Yeah. The real inquiry is who is listening. The answer is always me. Yeah. So the thing about the non-grasping stuff is like this. There's a bunch of mental contents happening, and then there's this idea from before, let's say, or what's being presented as before, it's not actually before, that I am going to not grasp at these thoughts. But that I is one of the thoughts. So when you try to not grasp at these thoughts, you bind tighter to the I, which is one of the thoughts. So the whole inquiry of who is listening, the answer is always me. And then if you settle down inside of your body, you can hear that me thought. Yeah? So if you're trying to not grasp all of the contents of experience, the mind, the mental system and the body from the me thought, it never works. Because you're completely bound to it, because the me thought is part of what you're trying to not grasp, let's say. Yeah? That's why Hong Po says, keep both hands open. Because one hand is the objectivity, at least this is how my head sees this. One hand is what is being seen, like let's say the thoughts. The other hand is the seer, the sense of being the seer. This is why letting go, the idea of letting go can get sticky. Because it puts you in the seat of being the one who's letting go. It puts you in the seat of being the me or the I thought, which is letting go of all the other thoughts. But the I thought is one of the other thoughts. It's splitting itself and acting as two different things. If you're always sitting as the me who's trying to let go, nothing ever gets let go. Actually, you get more bound to being the guest. So the not grasping has to step back further. That's why I like listening. Because you can hear your head say me. Whatever is heard is not what is hearing. So whatever you hear in your experience, all the mental anxiety, and then the thought, I'm the one doing it, or seeing it, or ba 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 ba, you can hear all that. That's obviously not where you start. If you can hear all that, yeah? So there is no individual that is a host. The host that Empty Cloud's talking about is your Buddha nature. But as soon as the idea me or Jay pops up, that is a guest. It's like very similar to Ramana Maharshi's screen and movie thing. It's like your nature is the screen. Everything happens on the screen. But to the mental system, as an idea, the thought me is the screen, but that's not the screen. The thought me is part of the movie. Like Jay is part of the movie. Jay is not the screen. It's same as Nisargadatta. Before any thought, you exist. Yeah. So before the head claims, this is my life, yeah, you exist before that. You're already there even before that. That's why it's seen as not two. Yeah? Because there's thoughts, and then being the seer of the thoughts, the idea of me who's seeing the thoughts, that thinks it's the guest. You think you're you think you're the host. That you that thinks I'm the host, that's not what you are. That's maybe the better way to put that. The you that thinks you're the host, the you that thinks that you get it, what's being said, that's not what you are. You're before that. That is guessed. Because as soon as the mental system goes, I get it, then there's the option of, oh, I'm going to lose it, or I'm not going to get it. That's duality. Yeah, so then you're living back on this swinging left and right. So as soon as mine or anybody's head goes, I'm the host, that ain't what you are. You're before that, you see? That's why I said, when Zen is used to try to manage conditions and stuff, I feel it's being misused. Because it's being used as a way to try to manage the guest to become a host, which doesn't work. Yeah. That's why I feel the listening is better, or huatu, or self-inquiry, or huadu, as they would say in Korea. Yeah. Who is listening? I am listening. If you can hear that I thought, it's obviously not the host. And you can hear that I thought. There's something that knows when the head says I. Because it's there before the head says I and after the head says I. So the inquiry, who is listening, to me is it's like a pivot point of listening meditation. If it's not being done, then we're always sitting as the listener. And there's no freedom in that. And then the same thing will happen, just like you said, Christy. Not grasping has been difficult all my life. Because the me who's trying to not grasp is that me is the one you're actually not grasping. It's weird. It's hard to say. It's a weird language thing. Not grasping has been difficult all my life. Because the you who's trying to not grasp can't do it. Because it's part of the guest. Yeah. The you who's trying to not grasp at everything else, that is what you don't grasp at, that you. And then not grasping at everything else is obvious. Yeah. But if there's always a sense of me which is not touching everything else, then I'm completely bound to the me. And then it's always this duality of back and forth. You can hear the me thought. What you are. Yeah? What you are can hear Christy all day long. All day long it can hear Christy. Because it hears everything. Because it's aware. It's just open listening. Yeah? So if we're identified as the one who's letting go of everything, there's not much letting go happening. It comes with a lot of side effects, like another thing pops up to let go. Then this, then this, then this, then this, blah, blah, blah. And it seems like, I can never actually let go. It's because you're holding on to the one who's trying to let go. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if any of that makes sense, but if you have another question or something, if anybody's got a question or something to share, feel free. No? All right.